Good evening. It's 6 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order. Abby, are you doing a roll?
Can we just note for the record all members present?
I'm good with that. We're asked if you're able, please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Chair is looking for a motion to approve the agenda as presented or with changes.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
I got a motion and a second. It's a non-debatable motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. We've come to the part of the meeting where it's an open forum. If anyone would like to speak to any issue in particular, I will note that there are 2 public hearings tonight, so if you're here for one of those, you'll also have an opportunity at that point. But if there's some other issue you would like to discuss, we ask you to please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Spend a couple of minutes giving your thoughts. Once we've heard from everyone, we will close the open forum and we'll move on to our consent agenda. So with that, does anyone wish to speak at the open forum?
It's right here.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I want to press up here. Okay, excuse me, good evening. My name is Colleen Barksdale, and I'm here on behalf of the neighbors over on Fondant Avenue North. And we have some concerns regarding the proposed development of 14 houses on 21145 Fondant Avenue. And I want to preface what I'm going to say, the statement I'm going to state basically from the neighborhood. I want to preface that with, we are none of us opposed to the Gustafsons selling their property and the children getting their inheritance. We're all been good neighbors, you know, and it's a generational kind of neighborhood. So, but as a current homeowner on Fondant Avenue North in Forest Lake, I want to express my objections to the size and scope of the proposed McKinley Creek Estates project. I see that this project presents a significant negative impact to the current water, sewer, road, environment, financial, safety, and peacefulness of this neighborhood. I would urge this commission, as well as the city council, to pursue and accept input from all the property owners in this Fondant neighborhood before this development plan continues. This proposal is focused on a neighborhood with limited ingress and egress. And because of this, all property owners will be impacted, regardless of their immediate proximity to the actual project. Access and safety is a major concern, and long-term, the impact on our neighborhood situated on a dead-end road is unknown. We will continue to be in flux over the next several years with the various road construction projects on Highway 97 there surrounding our neighborhood. And I'd like to leave you with a copy of this, just mostly to kind of let you know that we have some concerns about this project, just its size, just how it's going to impact our neighborhood. So I'll leave you with these, and she only told me there were 5 people, but it was 6 of me, so.
Thank you. You go.
And make sure, Abby, how many do you have left?
Let's make sure Abby has one, and then,
She needs one.
right.
I do not, but I can make a copy after the meeting for anyone who did not get one, if I could have
We'll
one.
do it that way.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Thank you so much.
So just to let you know, they were here for a concept review, correct, Abby? That's what they
That
were-
is correct, and Colleen and I did talk before the meeting, so she knows where we're at in that
Okay.
process, and that it could be possible that no future applications are made. If and when an application is made, then the neighborhood gets noticed, and there would be neighborhood meetings here at City Hall.
And there will also be a public hearing when they come for the
Yep,
Plan.
and I'll also let the developer know that you've come, and I'll share this with him, and hope that he'd reach out to the neighborhood before
I did
anything.
contact him, found out also their business started in 2008, and in 2017, they applied for a Better Business Bureau accreditation, 2017, and they still do not have that. And, you know, that's a concern too, with a lot of the different building projects come in and, you know, are not really up to standard. So, anyway, with that, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Mhm.
Does anyone else wish to speak at the open forum this evening? Seeing no one come forward, we'll close the open forum. Chair is looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda considerations. There's only item A, approve the minutes from the regular meeting of June 25th, 2025.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item 7A is, of our regular agenda is a public hearing for an interim use permit at 8393 200th Street North. Nicholas,
Kushcke.
thank you. And the case file number. The way this will work tonight, the city will present the application as they understand it. Planning commissioners will ask any clarification questions that they need. After that, we'll ask the applicant if they wish to add anything, make sure we understand it. We may have a couple questions for you. We will then host a public hearing. I'll give further instructions at that point. Once we close the public hearing, it'll come back here for a decision. So with that, Abby, are you presenting?
I am. Thank you, Chair, members of the commission. Nicholas Kushcke and Christina Kushcke, I probably butchered that. But if I sang it in a little bit of a sing-song, maybe it would have sounded a lot better. I don't know. But they live at 8393 210th Street North. It's kind of southeast.
110th or 200th?
Excuse me, 200th Street North. Kind of the southeast corner of Forest Lake, south of the Forest Lake. Forgive me for not knowing which basin. They are looking to build a new single-family home in the agricultural zoning district. During construction, they would like the opportunity to live in their existing home as a temporary dwelling during construction while they build the new home. And our code does allow for this by interim use permit. So some of the commissioners might be newer to not remember or not know what an interim use permit is, but essentially it's like a conditional use permit. It's a use that's allowed. We have the right to put conditions on it, and we will also put a timeline expiration. I think we went through a couple of these at our last meeting. 2 weeks ago is a long time ago to remember that. So the city is being asked to review and consider the dwelling temporary during construction at 8393 200th Street North and make recommendation to the city council. Oh, it's not showing up on there. Sorry about that, guys. You might have it on your own screens in front of you, but just
There we go.
pulling it up for the public. This is the location of the property off of 202nd Street North. And that's in that agricultural zoning district. It is kind of a unique property in that it's got rural residential nearby, it's got conservancy nearby. And this is the site plan that is proposed and existing. So if you look at the light gray crosshatch of the existing home, and there was an existing garage that I believe has since been removed, that is making way for that proposed home. They'd like to live in this existing residence while the home is built, and then they will remove the house and add the garage on. If I remember right, there's kind of a timing of the construction there. So staff's analyzed this for zoning review, site plan review, and it conforms to all of the city standards for the construction of a new home and for allowing for that second dwelling while construction is occurring. Staff has gone through the finding of facts of just whether or not there's any sort of impact to the health, safety, general welfare of the occupants, the neighborhood, traffic concerns, utilities, Generally, we find that it conforms to all the city standards. Staff is recommending that this body does recommend the city council approve resolution approving the IUP with 9 recommended conditions. And the Kushkes are here to discuss this with you. Do you have any questions for me?
Questions of staff? Susan?
Yes.
Usually if we say you don't need to tear something down until you build a new something, we ask for a bond in case the city has to do tear down or removal or if there are issues. And I missed that in here.
We do require that as part of the building permit process. So as part of the entitlements, we haven't necessarily included it in these conditions, but that is a part of the building permit release.
Okay.
Other questions of staff?
I was reading they're putting in a new well,
Yes.
and do they have to cap the old well when they're done, or?
By state law, they'll have some different options. Capping the well is always the preferred option. State would also allow them to have a well maintenance permit, but I think those are state regulations, not city regulations. They would have to conform to those as part of this process.
Other questions? Hearing none, would the applicant like to add anything?
Not at this time.
Any questions of the applicant?
That's a pretty steep site on the back end of that, correct?
It is, yes. That's
Sir,
why
I've-
we designed it to do a walkout basement, so
Okay.
that we're gonna use that hill to our advantage.
Sir, if you could come up to the microphone. You know, those people at home want to make sure they
Oh, yeah.
grab every word from you. And state your name and address for the record, please.
My name's Nicholas Kushcke. I live at 8393 200th Street North in Forest Lake.
And if you could re-answer Commissioner Young's question on the steep slope.
We plan on using that for our walkout basement.
How many outbuildings do you have on the property now?
There is, I believe, just one in a shed.
One and a shed?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions of the applicant? Thank you.
Thank you.
We may have questions later.
Sounds good.
This is a public hearing. If anyone wishes to speak to this application, we ask you to come up to the lectern, state your name and address for the record. Spend a couple of minutes giving us your thoughts on the application. Once we have heard from all parties, we will close the public hearing, and we'll come back for further discussion and a decision by the Planning Commission. So we'll open the public hearing at 6:12 PM. Does anyone wish to speak to this application? Abby, I assume there's nothing to be read in?
No, that is correct.
I'll ask one more time. Does anyone wish to speak to this application? Seeing no one come forward, we'll close the public hearing at 6:13 PM. Commissioners, what's your pleasure?
Recommend approval. Make a motion to recommend approval. Do we have the language in here that you want? I'm scrolling through to see if it's in here for recommendation to approve the
Page 16.
Yeah, you
interim.
could, just a recommendation to approve the Kushkke IUP
Okay.
with the 9 proposed conditions.
Okay, recommend to, or my motion to recommend to approve the Kushcke IMP? IUP. Case file number PZ 25-1331 at 8393 200th Street North.
I have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
I got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any discussion? Hearing none?
No.
Oh. You surprised me. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. So what we have done is we make a recommendation to the city council. City council will have the final say on your IUP, and I'm sure, do we know when it'll go before the council?
I was just going to check because I knew that question was going to come up. If you can give me a second. I don't think it's Monday. That's quick turnaround. We have it. I have to double check with staff. It could potentially get turned around on Monday, but otherwise it would be on the city council's July 28th meeting.
And the applicant will be informed what day that is.
Yes, we will inform the applicant of that date.
So it sounds like sometime in July,
July 28th it is, correct.
July
It has been set.
28th. Good luck with your project. Have a good day. You're not forced to stay for the rest of the meeting. We'll move on to 7B, a public hearing for zoning ordinance text amendment for the landscaping regulations, ordinance number 757, and there's a case file number. Abby, are you presenting?
I am, Chair, thank you. Just making a note, our council member liaison pointed out that there's just a, there isn't a meeting set on the calendar for the 28th, but there will be a city council meeting on the 28th. All right, so in a series of meetings beginning at the beginning of the year, former city planner Ken Roberts and our consulting planner Claire Stickler had been working with the Planning Commission to discuss changes to the landscaping regulations. Enclosed is an ordinance which reflects some of the discussed changes as well as consolidates all the landscaping regulations into a single cohesive set of standards. What that does is it integrates design standards, maintenance requirements, and guarantees into a single streamlined format. Again, some of you weren't here when we started this process last year where we reformatted the zoning code, really trying to pull items together. The intent is to then start going through ordinance amendments and kind of getting the low-hanging fruit by trying to consolidate, refine, and create efficiency in our zoning code. I recognize that this might not have been a low-hanging fruit, but it is one that needed to be done because our landscaping standards appear to be excessive. So throughout those conversations that you've had, the goal of this ordinance that was before you was to have revised language that's less technical, reduces complexity, and makes the regulations just generally more accessible to the general public, to our development community, to you guys, and to us. So for the most part, the landscaping regulations are staying the same. It was more important for staff, at least at this point, given our staffing transitions that we've had, and not being the primary staff that had been working with you, was to take what we've had, what you've discussed, and kind of throw it back together, reformat it, and organize it. Before you tonight is that reorganized ordinance with the one primary substantial change, which is reducing the number of landscaping units, I don't think that's what we call them, but trees and plants, to minimize some of those requirements for the development community. As you've seen in the past, the development applications that are becoming before you, simply put, there is not enough land area for the amount of trees and shrubs that we're requiring of our developers. Not to say that we don't want things well landscaped and that there'd be good, strong vegetation. It's just overall, there's not enough land area for the maturity of the requirement. If that makes sense to all of you? So the new code language, what it essentially does is it still has that perimeter of the lot divided by 60 for overstory trees, and then understory trees and shrubs would be not less than the perimeter of lot divided by 15. So what staff has done is they've gone through one recent case study that you've looked at, the Winco Dental Clinic that was on Centennial Drive. And with that, what we did is looked at the planting requirements for the total linear feet of what would have been required, what's existing, the proposed language. We also did that for Chase Bank and Interstate Companies, 3 applications that have come before you. And as you'll see in each of these, and I can pull them up for us to go through, if you so want me to, is that the proposed language aligns a little bit better with some of the requirements to where the development itself is not short as much landscaping as they previously have been required. I'm going to leave it at that. I will say that a big goal of tonight is to try to see if we can get something moving along to the city council. I recognize that I haven't been the staff that's been here having these conversations with you, but it also is an attempt to try to move something forward and then start being able to move on to new and other code sections. So tonight before you is recommendations on 2 different ordinances. One that is amending the landscape regulations, and then another one that's, which is its own section, and then another one amending landscape regulations relating to specific code sections where we kind of keep saying, hey, your landscape regulations are those regulations, and it kind of just keeps pointing back. I'm going to leave it at that. This is a public hearing. Do you have any questions for me before you open it up for the public?
Commissioners, questions?
I have a bunch of questions. Mr. Chair, when we talked about this previously, we didn't really look at the language, we just talked about concepts. At least that's kind of how I remember it. And so it's some of the language that's in here that I have questions on how, what's intended. So I don't know if you want to do that before the public hearing or after.
I'm pretty easy. I don't think we got a crowd coming in for the public hearing, but we can wait if you want.
Okay.
Any other, I have a couple simple questions.
Sure.
If in your analysis, in 153.135 on page 28, I'm confused by this. You talk about 2I. Where they went?
Page 28.
Well, maybe I'll make a liar out of me. But you talk about the minimum number of trees divided by 10. Oh, there it is. I'm
Page
sorry,
29.
page 29. 2I, and you divide it by 60, and then you say the minimum number of trees shall be not less than the perimeter of the lot, and then divided by 10, and then the next sentence says the exact same thing except divided by 15. Is it like pick which one you like?
I think that's a duplicate statement when we were trying to assess whether or not the 15 or the 10 would be more sufficient.
What is your analysis based on the 3 above?
The 15, I believe. And I can see I reiterated that exact same line in my staff report, so I apologize for the
It's in there
error
a few times in the report, but
Yeah. I would just have to do the math calculation. I believe it's the 15.
all right. I think that's my big question, and, well, and I'm gonna hold my other comment till, this is a public hearing. If anyone would like to speak to this zoning ordinance change, we ask for text amendment, we ask you to come up to the lectern, state your name and address for the record, spend a couple minutes giving us your thoughts on this application. Once we have heard from all parties, we will close the public hearing and bring it back for further discussion with the commissioners. So we'll open the public hearing at 6:23 p.m. Does anyone wish to speak to this application? Boy, can you tell?
Resolution.
Pardon me?
Ordinance, not application.
Yeah, ordinance. Boy, can you tell that it's a nice day outside? That's so weird. I'll ask one more time. Does anyone wish to speak to this application? Ordinance change, text amendment. Seeing no one come forward, we'll close the public hearing at 6:24 p.m. Susan, you had some additional comments?
Yeah, I do. I have an issue with using the perimeter instead of an area. And I'm thinking, okay, you take a 4 square foot box, and realizing that we're looking at bigger. But if you design your box so it's 1 foot by 4 foot, the perimeter is 10. If you design your box so it's 2 by 2, the perimeter is 8. So depending on the configuration, your coverage, which really is an area sort of thing, could be very different. Whereas if you use something that is based on area, you're going to have more uniform coverage on the different configurations of lots. The other thing is that if you use an area, it scales differently from a smaller lot to a larger lot. I went back and looked at, we used to be a green step city, and I went back and looked at some of those ordinances, and I see why they base those on trees per X number of square feet. And so my concern is that if we do it on perimeter, our coverages are going to be different depending on the side of lot, especially since we've got a lot of lots in the city that are the skinny ones, and then we've got some that are on the square side. So that's whatever. On page 28.9B, it's 1, it says 4 trees per residential lot. Are those understory trees, overstory trees? What size, what species? There really isn't anything in there to say what trees, and whether or not we are preferring natives versus non-natives. So
Can
I just.
Can
I'm
I
sorry.
maybe comment on some of these?
Yes, ma'am.
As we kind of go along?
Absolutely.
So I understand the concern with perimeter and area, and staff and the consultant did take a look at some area calculations versus perimeter. The reason that staff is proposing at the moment perimeter is because we've been using perimeter. And now that doesn't mean necessarily because we've always done it, we should keep doing it that way. Frankly, I needed to get an ordinance in front of you that we kept moving along. We've been working on this for 7 or 8 months. And so it was more than anything, the staff that had been here had been working with you. Here's an ordinance, is this what you meant? So we can definitely look at that perimeter versus area, but when we looked at that before, the numbers weren't calculating out the same. We were actually finding there was less landscaped properties with the area. Now that could have just been the formula
Provider.
that was using. With regard to the 4 trees per lot, it indicated on page 29 in section B1, those 4 residential per lots, that's just under the construction requirements. But then when you go down on page 30, section 153, 137, the landscape design requirements, that's where then we kind of get into no more than 50% of them shall be comprised of 1 species. We will not allow any of these, and then kind of minimum planting sizes. We did not get into necessarily, tried really hard not to get into specific plant species other than where they were prohibited to allow for developer and homeowner flexibilities. Like that's just one of those areas where we wanted to have some less regulation, right?
So on a brand-new detached, single-family residential lot, you need 4 trees, and they could be ornamental trees with an 1.5-inch caliper.
Based on what we have here, they could have, it says essentially one, no more than 50% of the trees, so no more than 2 shall be of the same species. So I can understand how you'd want to necessarily define if those would be overstory or understory. Our current regulations don't.
I understand that, and I understand the desire to get something done, but I also believe that once you pass this, you don't want to change it again within the next year or so.
Sure.
And so I want to make sure that if we do something, that it's what we want rather than something to get her done.
Do you have a recommendation?
Quite frankly, I would tend to mimic what you've got in section B2, where you talk about the required number of overstory trees and ornamental trees and
Can you
shrubs.
just cite the code section?
B, on page, okay, let me get back to the code. It is, on page 29, it's B, paragraph 2, you've got I and double I.
Oh, and the new construction requirements for the other than single-family and two-family?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And that could be an easy fix of just requiring those for any, what I'm hearing you say is you want those requirements for any development.
In section 2, little I, two little i's, you've got an equivalent of 50% of the required number of overstory trees could be substituted with ornamental trees. And then in B, you can have up to 50% of the ornamental trees be substituted with shrubs. So if they pick A and say, okay, I'm going to substitute ornamental trees, but then I'm also going to say I want half of my ornamental trees to be shrubs,
So it would be 2 overstory trees, 1 ornamental tree, and 20 shrubs.
okay, so you can't, like cascade. You can't say, okay, I'm gonna do 50% of my overstory, and instead I'm going to substitute ornamentals. And then say, and you know what, since I've done this number of ornamentals, and so I've got half the number of trees, then I also want to substitute some of those half of those ornamentals to be shrubs.
So
Sort of a cascade thing.
using the single family for the example, just because it's easier. We got 4 trees required. 2 of them may be ornamental, right?
Okay.
Under section A.
Right.
Then of those 2 ornamental, 1 of them, no more than 50% of the ornamental, could be substituted for shrubs. So there you end up with 2 overstory trees, 1 ornamental tree, and 20 shrubs.
What that comes out to is a really significant difference in future canopy and in future shading and in the future look of the city. And so I just needed to know if that was what you intended.
I think their original intent was just to have 4 trees.
Well, you're not going to get 4 trees.
Which is the point for a residential lot.
Right.
Yeah.
But if we're going to mimic what's in 2 up there in single family and 2 family, I just wanted to make sure that I knew what it was going to be.
So I guess that's the question. I think before you move on, it'd be good if we're discussing these things, just so that we kind of see if that's consensus of the planning commission. At the very least, it's helping me provide direction if I need to amend an ordinance and bring it back for you, or amend an ordinance to the council. So I think the question is whether or not the commission as a whole agrees that we should be amending that 4 trees per lot to require some of that diversity that's in the B2 A and B, or we want to just say 4 trees per residential lot, maybe say 2 of them could be substituted as ornamental, not including the 2B. Is everybody following me? How about I pull it up? Whoa.
Well, in my simple mind, I don't really want to mess too much with residential lots. I mean, people can do what they want as long as they put 4 trees up, as far as I'm concerned. It's different, I think, when we get to commercial and we get to some of this other stuff where they ideally would pave right up to their front door and that would be it. So I can see, but on a residential house, I think that 4 trees is adequate if we want to say 2 have to be overstory and 2 have to be, what's the other word, understory?
Understory
Which
or
I never
ornamental?
really understand the exact difference, but I'm sure that's significant to tree people.
20-foot maximum height versus 50 or 60-foot maximum height. In other words, the understory are the crabs and the
Apple trees.
Yeah,
Pear trees.
yeah.
Or anything planting on their power lines?
Yeah.
Boy, the things I learn here, I tell you. Continuing, Abby, I'm sorry about the sidetrack there.
No, that's okay. I think it's for the commission to discuss. I think all of Commissioner Young's things that she's bringing up are great, but I need to hear from more than one person. No, you know, I think as a commission, you have to discuss, is that idea a good idea? And if so, how should we be changing this? Or are we just gonna keep with 4 trees per lot and we don't care if there's diversity greater
I
than the
don't care.
50%?
I like the idea of 2 and 2, 2 understory, 2 overstory. And do we have a provision in here as well for, like, the emerald ash borer came out, pretty much wiped out our neighborhood. Do we require them to be replanted? Or-
I would have to
really.
look at that maintenance section to get to the exact, forgive me, it's been a
It
while
says
since
permanent.
I.
It says that if it was part of the original plan, it's permanent. But that was like 30 years ago, so it would be tough to have somebody come in and say it has to be replanted. And the developer is long gone.
I mean, do we require the citizens to replace trees if they're removed, or that
Nope.
wouldn't be in this section?
I don't believe we do we?
No, I mean, it does say plants and ground cover which are required by an approved site or landscape plan, which are diseased or have died, shall be replaced within 3 months by notification of the city. So if you take that standalone, any building permit that has been issued, if those trees were shown on there, yes, we can require them. I think the neighborhoods that we're seeing the ash come down is where there was a lot of ash planted, and those are really hard ones, I would say, to go to a homeowner and require them to replant all their trees right away. We're trying to work with property owners the best they can right now with dealing with their ash trees.
And that's kind of what I'm hoping, is that as we look at the ordinance, that we try and learn from our mistakes. I mean, years ago, it was elms, and everybody planted elms, bam, 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 and then Dutch elm wiped things out. And then they said, okay, we're gonna plant all green ash, and bam, 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 green ash. What I'm hoping is that if we have a requirement to plant trees, that we say, you gotta have a little diversity in your trees, that they can't all be the same thing. I realize that would be challenging, but at least if you go understory, overstory, you've got a chance at that. I really, really do like the plant selection and so that we don't have the amur maples and the green ash and things like that.
All right, let's come back to the single family and get consensus. Otherwise, we'll be here till
Okay.
11, and when I have to legally quit the meeting. So
And
we
I-
don't want to be here till then, because I have a hot water tank to finish installing tonight.
Okay, I'm sorry. I guess I'm a little sensitive to this because my daughter does live in a brand-new development, and it's really awful. They planted the same trees. They were too small, and they're not thriving. So I would like, if we're gonna have an ordinance, that it be something so that they have to be planted a correct species for our climate and soils, and that we have some diversity in that.
I got a question. So are they, when they talk about the trees, are they planting them in such a way that they're not going to interfere with the sewer pipes?
Yeah, generally speaking, if it's a new development, we are taking a look at those landscaping plans to try to ensure that those future, the future maturity isn't going to impact certainly public infrastructure. I can't necessarily always guarantee private infrastructure because we don't always know where private utility lines are. And a lot of times if it's a water or sewer line coming in, we don't necessarily have that same exact information together. Generally, if it's a new build in a residential subdivision or reputable contractor, they're keeping those that mature vegetation away from that infrastructure.
Thank you.
Back to where do we sit with the single-family
So-
consensus?
I'm hearing, at least from a few people, 4 trees is great, and you want to see 2 overstory, 2 understory. No more than 50% of any of them can be one species. So you could have 2 red maples, but then your ornamentals have to be different. Is that what I'm hearing? Seeing some head nod.
Yes, that sounds good.
Look at that, I got 4. All right.
We're good. So your dividing number and all of that you had earlier, are we good with that, or?
I think Susan may want to come back to that perimeter, but I think that is one that is going to be a little trickier to vet through tonight. And so I think we should go through the rest of the list that any commissioners or a commissioner in particular have, to at least just see if we can knock through a few of those policy changes. Because if perimeter and area seem to be the only other one, it could be that we could just direct staff to bring it back, or say, use the Green Steps model ordinance for using area. I'd be a little reluctant on that, just because I haven't vetted it in some of these other projects, but
So-
other,
Let me go back to Winco for a minute. So they put how many in? 136?
let me just pull them up. Winco was required to put in 33 overstory trees. They proposed 7.
Yep.
They were short 26.
Yep.
Understory trees and shrubs, they was required to have a 100. They put in 136. If we use the new divided by 15 to answer your original question, perimeter, they would have been required to only have 17 trees. They still would have been short by 10, but as a reminder, you look at that building and the parking lot, I don't know how we could have gotten 17 trees on there. Understory would have been 67, they would have been in excess.
All right, the reason I ask is that's my dental clinic, and it looks packed. I mean, just, the stuff seems like it's on top of each other, and I just want to make sure that we're not trying to jam too much in. I mean, they have shrubs between the foundation and some decorative wall, and I think it was to get the count up.
Probably,
And
which
they'll
is
probably die pretty soon.
why
but-
staff is really encouraging us evaluating the landscaping ordinance. Since I've come on, we've all seen it. We require a lot of plants and trees, and these sites cannot achieve the requirements. Now, that being said, the code does also say the city can waive some requirements. So no longer would they need a variance. If it looks like it's well landscaped under the new regulations, we can say, hey, Winco, you are now, under our new regulations, required to have 44 trees. You're gonna propose 27. We think that's sufficient. You don't have to have a variance for that. But I would agree that I think our existing regulations have been too cumbersome, which is why this is one of those low-hanging fruits, even though it's not as low-hanging as some other things. It just has some very big impact in our development community.
And I think that part of our issue is our residential lots and our commercial lots here used to be a lot bigger. And so that sort of made sense. Again, when you use perimeter, it's not as proportional, and so the numbers would have been lower. Yeah, I did play with the numbers. But now that we have smaller lots, I agree that we need to make some changes so that we're not overpacking. But on the other hand, there are also some serious benefits to having trees and shrubs on site, not just aesthetics.
I'm
So-
sure there are. What else you got?
On page 32, and it is 153.137A, little I, it says, foundation planting shall respond to the materials and form of a building. I think you mean should reflect.
I
Where are
lost
we
you.
at?
Page 32.
Foundation plantings
Oh, there we go.
under I.
Yeah. That's just really minor.
So, yeah, something to the complement. There's something different there. We can definitely,
Yeah,
yep.
And the commission may say just to go ahead and pass this as you presented it tonight. However, sorry, now I'm out of my order. On page, sorry, I missed page 31. Under B1, little IV, the spacing of trees along all local and collector streets shall be no more than 30 feet apart. Does that mean in all of our new subdivisions, we're going to be having trees on the boulevard?
We will not. There's another ordinance out in our right-of-way management that we don't allow them in boulevard areas.
Then we probably don't want to set another set of ordinances in conflict with each other.
I guess we can change that to say in front yards along local and collector streets, but I guess I wouldn't have, I think that can be clarified, that it's yard areas adjacent to, not in the right-of-way.
I wanted to better understand what you meant by local streets.
I think that's great, for the future us.
Okay. Going down next is paragraph 4, parking lots. Do we someplace else say how many parking islands need to be provided for either an area or perimeter of a
Yes.
parking lot, and how big they are and what the soils should be in those islands so that we're not making tree coffins?
We do require the design standards for our parking lots and associated landscaping islands are in our parking regulations. I don't know if we delineate the soil type in those, but when we look at parking regulations, we certainly could probably address that.
Because we don't always require islands, right?
You have to have a lot of a certain size, a certain number of spaces or rows before we would require islands. The idea is to help provide that shade for those larger massed areas, because you can see those larger parking lots where we weren't requiring that.
Try and avoid the heat island concept.
Being an ex-facility guy, I despise those islands.
I understand that.
Try snow plowing and mowing those.
I understand. But
washing
if you
cars.
don't want them, then we need to say, we're not going to talk about them.
Well, when we get the parking, we'll
Okay.
have that discussion.
Okay. In little v triple I, B,
Are we going on to the next page? Or
yes, please.
Page
33, yep.
33.
8B.
And it would be in B, reconstructed, is that repaved or a complete reconstruction?
We would have had that as a complete reconstruction.
Okay, thank you. And then C, farther down the page. We're trying to make these so that developers and folks will understand what it is that we're going to be requiring. And the phrase "by the landscape industry," I think we need a different citation.
By the landscape industry. Are we still in
All
8C?
landscaping materials shall be installed in accordance with the current planning procedures established by the landscape industry.
We're
Oh,
on
on
page
installation C.
33C,
Yeah.
big C.
I-
Do you have a recommendation on a change to that?
My guess is that there are standards in the Association of Landscape Architects or in the nursery industry. I don't have a specific citation, but in D, as determined by a landscape architect, and I would say a certified
Okay, we're moving
Association
on.
of Landscape Architect. So that we know that it is somebody with,
You want a credentialed landscape architect?
pardon me?
You want a credentialed?
Yes,
Licensed.
licensed.
So you would like to see, or going back to see in installation, the planting procedures established by the Association of Landscape Architects, and that also changed for the certification for the irrigation.
Yes, please.
Everybody agree with that? You guys, does this make sense?
I really, really love on page 34, keeping you got to keep your landscape together. I mean, you've got to keep it neat, orderly, free from debris, and replacing landscape materials. I think that's great. And I'll just be quiet for the rest.
Okay.
Commissioners, other comments? I would say that if you guys could clean this up, it ought to be about a slam dunk at our next meeting, a or nay it. Would you concur, Ms. Young?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
I think the only thing that I would need is direction on this perimeter versus area, and whether or not we want to move forward continuing with perimeter, even if it is not necessarily the industry standard, but a higher divisible, knowing that the ordinance does indicate we can waive some requirements if required, or if so desired.
So, Susan, is your concern that we're adding too much in some cases?
My concern is that when we base our ordinance on perimeter, that perimeter doesn't scale well, so that your tree canopy is going to be sort of consistent, whereas area scales better.
So I'm gonna have more or less the plan, which way, typically.
Let me find my stupid, okay. So, when I looked at area and perimeter and contrasted them, to Abby's point, a 55 by 35 lot, if you use perimeter, you'd
But
end up with.
those are residential, we're not using perimeter for residential.
I just needed some numbers, sort of like the
Okay,
4
all
square
right,
foot.
okay, sure. I just wanted to verify, because
Right.
we don't have that small, well, I can't say we don't, because we do in our downtown area.
I'm not gonna worry about the higher math here.
Okay, yeah,
Right.
no, easy
And-
math, easy math.
And that's what I needed. I
Yep.
just needed numbers that I could use, sort of like that 4 square foot.
Yep.
If it was a 55 by 35 lot, you'd end up with 3 trees using perimeter. You'd end up with 4 trees using area. If it was 75 by 50, you'd end up with 4 trees using perimeter, and area, you'd end up with 7 trees, 7 or 8 trees, 7.5 trees. So I just, figuring out whether we use area or whether we use perimeter, my preference is going to be area, but finding a divisor that makes sense for us, because I think that the bigger the lots, then it makes a much bigger difference.
Could we look at doing an either or? You can do the calculation by area or perimeter, and the greater or the lesser, whichever one we decide, is the one you need to comply by. It's a very simple calculation, right?
Yeah.
It is, it's having to do 2 calculations, which is okay. I guess.
Excel
the-
does them all.
The concern that I have in just pointing out the last example you had, So 75 by 100, was that it?
50. I thought it was 75 by 50.
So a 3,700 square foot lot. One of those requirements was 4 trees, one was 7.
Yeah.
You know, once you put the improvement on that area, can you actually get 7 trees on there? On a lot, a non-residential lot where we have 65% impervious surface.
And when I was looking at area, I will admit that I was going by the green strip ordinance, which excludes the area of a building.
So it's
all right,
just the
either on a
remaining
commercial property
undevelopable
or on a
area.
residential property. The square footage excludes the area of the building, since we're not asking folks to put a tree in the middle of their house or a tree in the middle of their manufacturing plant.
So, and I have that model ordinance in front of me. So the question that I have is, because that has indicated, like, of the site area, so it'd be like 50% of the total site area. What you're saying is site area is areas not encumbered by impervious surfaces. Okay? I certainly can take a look. It's gonna be a while before I get it back in front of you guys. I'm not saying that that's not worthy. I needed to kind of continue this conversation so this didn't fall off after Ken had left. It's been a couple months. No, that's okay. You don't have to apologize, Commissioner Young. I think more than anything, we want to get something done. We do want to do it right. I'd never like to have to look at an ordinance with a year. It is customary to review your ordinances, though, every now and then, and update them. And so that's one of the reasons it's just challenging. We haven't done this for a long time, and we've got probably maybe an old industry standard of the perimeter versus the area. And that conversion, now's the time. The one thing I will say is we did build in that flexibility for this body to not have to do variances for landscaping. So potentially at your next meeting, I'll come back and I'll take a look with, using these 3 scenarios here, we'll look at the undeveloped land area and use some sort of area fraction to just kind of show you what would be those requirements in the future.
See, Abby, you figured out our secret. We, instead of occasionally reviewing them, we just multiple times review them every 30 or 40 years.
That's why it's taken so long? I get it. No, it's fine. It's good. It's good.
What was the last time that we looked at some of these ordinances?
Well, I can
Then-
tell you when we last edited this
It was
ordinance.
after the merge or annexation, depending
Yeah.
where you live.
When the city adopted in 2010, the city kind of wiped out the ordinance and adopted a new one.
Yep.
And then we've done some piecemeal amendments, but we've never looked at wholesale changes in at least 15 years.
Commissioners, any last comments for, Abby?
Do you know where the 60 came from? Dividing by 60?
It was just to increase the number, because I think right now it's divisible by 30. And so it was just,
So it's just grabbed out of the air? Okay.
yeah, and
Okay.
it was just as a means to, okay, because we did look at, well, what does it look like if it's 20 right now? What is it at 30? What is it at 40? What is it at 80? But it's just because we already used that perimeter divisible. We were just increasing that number to help decrease some of the planting requirements, knowing the current is in excess of what these lots really need.
any further comments?
Not just need, that we want for the forested developable land in Forest Lake in the future.
So,
Well, we're not Meadow Lake, we're Forest Lake.
Abby, do we need a motion to table this since we had a public hearing?
You do need a motion to table it.
Motion to table.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. It's a non-debatable motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Carries unanimously. Discussion on the ordinance, on the text amendment is over. So with that, we'll move to Timm's Marina sketch plan. I assume, Abby, you're covering this one also?
Hey, you guys got me for a while. That's all I'm saying.
I thought we had Monica, Marcia?
Madison.
Madison.
Madison does serve several other communities, and so she's always welcome to come here, but I still have to like be the person that would be here to unlock doors. And so to help save our consulting staff's sanity for not having 5 night meetings a week, I'm here to do these for you.
All right, Donna will unlock the doors.
Unlocked it. I got one of those cars. Never used it.
All right, so Timm's Marina, let me pull this up. Timm's Marina is a seasonal RV park and marina located at 9080 Jewel Lane North. Our records show that the property's use has been governed by a conditional use permit since at least prior to 1974. So the use has been in existence since prior to the property being annexed into the city. So the permissions originally granted were from the township. That isn't necessarily a here or a there, but that's what then classifies this as a legal non-conforming use in the single-family residential district. Today, we would not allow for a new RV park and marina in our single-family district, but because they had these permissions, they are able to be maintained. There were several amendments over the years, including parking, RV site expansion, and trailer parking. Again, all of those were done during the township. However, the earliest record we really have on file at the city is, I believe it was 2002, when the DNR issued the current permit, which allows for 66 watercraft slips on the property. So, as I mentioned, it is a legal non-conforming use. Our code does state that applicants in the single-family residential or landowners in the single-family residential district can request expansion of non-conforming uses by conditional use permit. This is a little different than state statute, which is very clear. We should not, or the state says do not expand nonconformities, but we can be less restrictive than the state. So the applicant has this opportunity to, would like to expand the property's use to include more watercraft spaces and boat slips in the water. So that would be an expansion of a non-conforming use. That would require a conditional use permit. There are associated on-land improvements that would be required, predominantly parking, that would necessitate a variance. But the DNR and state law have indicated marinas may not be expanded without first kind of going through the EAW process, the Environmental Assessment Worksheet process. We started a process with the landowner to review a draft EAW. As funds were being incurred, the landowner had said, maybe we need to stop a second. I'd really like to just sit down and have a conversation with the Planning Commission and the council to see what is the appetite for moving forward with expansion of this non-conforming use. If the applicant chooses to go forward, there will be significant costs on both their part and the city's part. And so having this conversation now can help them either prepare their applications and or just determine if they would rather not move forward. So city code allows us to have this sketch plan, very much like your concept plans. This is high level, non-binding comment. You'll have the opportunity, and then on Monday, this will be before the city council to also have the opportunity. So I'm gonna run through, it's noted in the staff report as analysis, a high level what the proposal would include, and then what are some of those kind of opportunities and constraints with the city code. In this, staff has not done exceptionally thorough analysis like we do with some of our other staff reports. I also do not necessarily have recommendations for you, because if the applicant chooses to come back forward, all of that will need to be done in the future, and we don't want to get too much cart in front of the horse if we're not there yet. That make sense? So Timm's Marina would like to alter the property in the following ways. So the first would be to include, I'm going to show you the current site conditions. Currently, we have a number of RV spaces. Like that? Did that blow up for you folks? A number of RV spaces that are in pink, and currently a single dock system. The landowner would like to remove some of the RV spaces and put two new docks on the property. Each of those docks would contain 36 to 38 boat slips, and there'd be a total of 67 to 68 additional slips on the property. They would like to also formalize, formalization, I used the word, I'm not sure if that's a real word, but formalize, allowing for the use of off-street grassed area for off-street parking that's located to the east of, I think this is maybe called the East Bay, or where their launch is located. That has been used as a temporary overflow parking area. And then in time, replacement of two residences on the property. They're down in kind of the southwest corner, a little bit closer to Highway 97. The one is a single-family building with an attached garage, and the other is, I believe, just a single-family dwelling. So, kind of walking through those improvements, the slip addition, the landowners submitted items indicate there are a total of 96 slips, 66 seasonal and 30 for RV owners. So those RV owner slips are throughout the site on the property. Is this, for the record, on your laptops, you can zoom in on these as well. This is page, are my packet numbers in here?
44.
Thank you very much. So you are able to kind of zoom in on your own individual laptop there if you can't quite see what I've blown up here.
Thanks. Sorry.
If the proposal is permitted, there would be a total of 172 permitted watercraft slips on the site. The docks themselves would be floated on the water, set in place with poles supported by the lake bed. Docks and posts would be removed and stored on site each winter. State law, as I noted, does require an EAW. The landowner has started that process, as I mentioned. As part of that process, staff and our consulting firm had identified some of these on-land ancillary land uses that are of concern. Those parking areas and their surface material, traffic, emergency shelter, adequate sanitation, and then just some of those preliminary concerns for EAW requirements around greenhouse gas emissions, because they do have to do an analysis on the future greenhouse gas emissions of the expansion. Regardless of that EAWs, the contents and the future findings, I'll note, doubling the slips on the site can add to an economic benefit to the community. In that it does bring more people to Forest Lake, which is, I think, a goal of our city council, is to increase tourism-based opportunities. Even our comp plan does talk about trying to support seasonal businesses, businesses that were historic land uses, bringing more people to the community. From a purely economic perspective, there are some benefits. Now, that being said, the increase in slip spaces is going to increase in water and on land traffic. This could have impacts on the lake, which I'm not going to necessarily comment on. I hear from folks that it's a busy lake at times, and so I think that's a factor. But also then just that nearby residential neighborhood and Highway 97 in the area where there's no turn lanes, no bypass lane, any sort of increase in traffic to there could be of a concern. And then the increase in space brings out those ancillary concerns that I've already brought it up. The parking on the surfaced areas, vehicles dripping into the grass, emergency shelter, sanitary capacity, all of those factors are other factors that would be vetted out through that just high level that would have to be considered. When it comes down to the total number of slips, the development as proposed would not conform to the city's parking standards. So the project would necessitate the consideration of a parking variance. So I include a little bit of statistics just here for you. The code requires 1.5 parking spaces per boat slip, plus 1 per employee and 20 trailer spots. So it should be noted, the 66 permitted slips today require 99 parking spots. The actual slips today are 96, would require 144 parking spots. Today, there's only 91 marked and unimproved spaces, which means there's 91 spaces out there. They're not asphalted, they're not delineated, but there's space out there for 91 vehicles. The parking ratio is 1.37. So for those 66 slips, we're almost meeting the 1.5 parking spaces per slip. The actual parking slip ratio, so for the 96 space slips, which is hard to, I want to slip between slips and spaces because these are very delineating things, but the actual parking slip ratio is 1.05 parking spaces per slip. If the landowner was permitted to expand the use of the property, there'd be approximately 0.73 parking spaces per boat slip. So we would be reducing that parking requirement. Prior to the landowner moving forward with even an EAW and having the early conversations, we did do some research, looked into 7 metro area communities, lake communities. Surprisingly, not all of them actually have a space to slip ratio. But we did find in White Bear Lake, they do require 1 space per slip. Excelsior, 1 space per 2 slips. And Tonka Bay, 7 spaces per 10 slips. So the regional industry standard ranges from 0.5 parking spaces per boat slip, where we're at 1.5. It's kind of doubling the average, right? Yeah, of 0.7.
Do the folks that don't have a parking slip parachute in?
That might be a discussion you want to have with the landowner who is here tonight to chat with you about this. And then, as noted, in addition to the number of spaces, the improvement of the spaces. Right now, the site is gravel and grass. And so they would like to continue to maintain those development standards, helping keep that kind of rural flavor that they have. Flavor is an aesthetic that they have on the site. There are also just some concerns on staff's part, on their part, that when we're putting in additional impervious surface, we are going to trigger things like watershed district requirements. That's going to take up more land area for less of that parking. So I guess I did make it a recommendation, but that recommendation is to provide non-binding feedback to the landowner and applicant. The landowner's representative, Joe Maslow from Timm's Marina, is here tonight to discuss this with you. Joe has provided me with a clipped video. It's about 3 minutes of drone aerial footage if you'd like to see on-site conditions if you haven't been through there. But I'll wait to play that until you're ready, or if you want me to right now. It's up to you guys.
Questions of staff? I don't see if there's any questions.
Abby, this is actually 2 separate properties.
It is 2 separate tax parcels. That's a great point. There is it's actually, I think, it might be 3, if not 4 too, Susan.
Yeah.
The main parcel that the RV and the slips are kind of on. And then there's a predominantly vacant parcel right here. You see all those little white things. Those are wintertime boat storage. This is the area where they are using currently for that temporary overflow parking that they would like to legitimize when they would do the expansion area.
So,
if permitted to do the expansion area.
so what we see is this little triangle up next to the lake. There would not be any additional trailers, and maybe those will be removed, and or how? I mean, it's
You would
a
have
separate parcel, and so
if the city did approve any land use action with this, or, reopening up that conditional use permit, we can impose any sort of reasonable conditions, reasonable and proportionate to the request to the use. So one of the things that staff would recommend is that we consolidate these land parcels into a single land development, so that we're not in that risk of potentially selling off a piece here or there.
We've also got the same thing as we've got on North Shore, that their property includes the road. Jewel.
Yep, we do have some, where we have prescriptive roadway easement, Jewel Avenue, that access point onto Jewel, does cross over the subject property, as well as portions of Highway 97. We haven't platted through that right-of-way through there, so it's by prescriptive easement. This would not be a land subdivision process, and so we could not require the dedication of that land for public purposes, though we might want to, should we go down a route in the future of formal consideration of a land use application, we may want to consider conditions for dedicating easements for public use over these, to more legitimize those historic rights the public already has.
Other questions of staff?
When they do the EAW, will that include a traffic study?
EAWs do not require a traffic study. They are required to look at greenhouse gas emissions. So to walk you through again, just that step in the process, they could not move forward with the Marina expansion without an EAW. That's a state law. State law actually says, hey, city, you're the bearer of that EAW. It's your EAW process. So what the city does is we say, hey, Timm's Marina, you want to do something, go draft an EAW, bring it back to us. We're going to look to see if it's complete. We're going to look to see that it addresses all the concerns and needs of an EAW. And once the EAW is complete, we accept it in, and then we start that EAW process. The EAW process takes that EAW, publishes that online through a state register system, and it pushes it out to state agencies, organizations, the general public, anybody and their brother who wants to take a look at it can take a look at it and comment. And during that process, essentially what the city must do is the city must take those comments and look to see that what they're looking to do does not have a negative environmental impact, and determine whether or not an environmental impact statement would be required of the development. Once the EAW process is done, if the city finds that an EAW is sufficient and this isn't going to have negative environmental impacts, then they can move forward with our local conditional use permit amendment and variance process. Once that process goes through and pending the city's approval, and then, and again, as a reminder, conditional use permits are uses permitted by right. We can put conditions on them. Variances are not automatic. You have to show that there's practical difficulty. So in all that, if the city says, yes, this is all good, EAW is good, conditional use permit's good, variance is good, then the applicant would go to the DNR to see if the DNR would amend their permit. So there's a number of steps through here before this could potentially happen. The applicant, the landowner, is well aware of those steps and the lots of jurisdictions that are going to weigh in through this process. But this is just the start to see high-level comment.
Abby, does the city have any concerns on rebuilding the two houses on one lot?
There are right now 2 houses on the lot, so that's another legal nonconformity. Today, we would not allow for that. But because they exist today, they can maintain them, they can repair, replace them in their current configuration. They cannot expand them without coming back to us again for that question of the expansion of a legal non-conforming use. So today the question just really is, hey, with all of this, are you okay with us replacing these in generally about the same place? I didn't even touch on those 2 homes, did I? I did in my staff report, didn't I?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, good. They want to replace them in generally the same amount of square footage. The shape of them moves just slightly, and one of those buildings does get slightly closer to what I call kind of that west bay. So on the west side here, this littler home moves back a little bit to get a little bit further back from that state highway.
Any other questions of staff? I know the applicant's here. Would you like to add more?
Come on up to the.
Please come up, state your name and address for the record, please.
Joe Maslow, 9080 Jewel Lane, Forest Lake. If I could, I'd play the drone video, and then we did our parking survey on the 4th of July, so we can go through the numbers from that, just to show that we have enough parking and kind of get a lay of the land for those that are unfamiliar. And there's no music on the drone video, so it will be.
You gonna play it from there, Joe?
I can?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go right ahead. Should work.
I'm glad you've got a current, because there's a couple of aerials online that show a lot more trailer or RVs on the property.
Yeah, in the wintertime, it looks much less organized.
Well, if you click not now, will it play? Here, I can play it from mine.
Okay.
I think we started to. Here, let's try one more time.
Movies. Get some 14-year-olds in here. Yeah. Get all this stuff on it.
Oh, shoot. I'm just enjoying the show here. I don't know about you guys.
Well,
Sorry about that. Could you tell I was sitting there watching it too? Oh, goodness.
Feel free to comment on the video as it goes through, Joe, for those who may not know it.
So this is north to south aerial. We did get a line striper, our field striper, to mark spots. Ken did suggest that our parking was disorganized. And it also helped show that we could get the 103 spots that we assumed we could based on area of previously used parking areas. That's south to north. Okay. And this is the drive-through, the way the vehicles would come through to get to the slip docks. We have parking on the left side there, along the pool and playground. And some oversized parking spots to the north of the playground on the left.
and the sheds that are there, those are permanent, and some of these, oh wow, some of these RVs there are also permanent, correct?
Yeah, I mean, they're permanent in the sense that they don't take them home in the wintertime. They're temporary in the sense that the wheels stay on them, nothing's dug into the ground, there's no foundations.
They're pretty coolly landscaped.
Yep. There were many ash trees and hybrid poplars planted 40 years ago. I don't know if we get to the left there. There was 2 units that were gone, and the other 2 from the east will be removed for next year. And I can show that on the overhead view as well. And we have parallel parking along the left. And typically people are going to park as close to their boat as possible. So of course the ones that are on the current slip dock are going to park out by the current slip dock until that's full. Then they'll park along the playground and pool area. Those to the left there are going to typically park there. We have parking to the right there, and then this is our east parking area. In the past, it was used more for launch parking and parking for people that were coming for fishing tournaments that we don't host anymore. And this is the south to north, and you'll see the houses to the left that will eventually be replaced.
Can the public use your marina to launch their boats?
So we charge $20 for the public. Neighbors, we don't charge. And we have 7 spots that we keep for the public, I guess, that pay $20, and then we keep 2 spots for the sheriffs and DNR in that launch area to the south. And we did do a GIS view. Oh, am I on here now?
No, I'm gonna pull
Okay.
you up.
We are in a unique area where we can put out slip docks without horribly affecting the neighbor's sight lines. So right here is our current dock, and these are the 2 proposed docks. They're a little bit longer because he just copy and pasted. They will be about 10 feet shorter than they show here. So we shouldn't affect the neighbors to the west, and the neighbors to our east won't be any more affected than the current one affects them. So this is the current view. This is a Google satellite view, kind of showing the same thing. We're kind of in a bay here, so we don't have neighbors very close to us on the left. These are the 2 site plans. These are just numbered slips. They kind of show the same layout. And then this is our parking survey that we did on the 4th of July, which is typically going to be our busiest day for parking. We surveyed at 1, 3:30, and 6:30. Total cars, some of those are going to be RV guest cars. And then we have boat slip cars separated out. If we take away the 20 slips that are designated to RVs, it's a little higher than that. But if we do 76 slips, the number of cars that were there, we get at 1 p.m. a parking factor, cars per boat slip of 0.27, at 3:30, 0.42, and at 6 it lessens a little bit to 0.394. Right now we have 103 spots. When we retire the 4 lake sites, we'll have 115. Not necessarily adding parking, but parking 2 cars that would park at the RV sites and then the RV, so 3 cars per site. So we get 115. At 168 slips, we get a parking factor of 0.68. If we factor out 20 RV slips, we get a parking factor of 0.78. Our variance request, I don't know if that's the appropriate term, would be 0.5 parking spots per slip, showing that on the busiest day, 0.4. Because not everybody uses their boat at the same time, we figure 20% at any given time, and 2 cars per used boat, so 0.4. On a busy weekend, or busy 4th of July, maybe if it was a little less windy, maybe it would have been 0.5 or 0.6, but we can cover that with our current used parking areas. And I did take some pictures on the 4th of July of the parking areas.
You said you were factoring out the RVs, so you're getting rid of a bunch of RVs spots?
So some of those slips belong to RV sites, and they're gonna park at their site typically. You know, there's 2 to 3 parking spots per site. And so this just shows our parking area. I believe this is the Monday before the drone video, so there's not many cars parked. But it just kind of shows we do 60-degree parking with a turnaround at the north end of that east area. Back-end parking along the rope there. And this is our launch area here. These spots are reserved for Washington County, and then we have 7 spots that are available to the general public or a slip guest that brings a jet ski or something of the sort. And so this is still gonna be Monday. And this section will start 4th of July parking. This is on the east area, launch parking there. We did fill up the 7 spots there. We had a few cars parked over in the east area. Typically, the cars that park over here are gonna have a boat slip on that east side of the bay. And this just shows kind of the unused parking area. And then, you know, of course, by the dock, typically it is full, and there are 9 spots out there. And this is just to show that, you know, on the 4th of July, we did have an excess of parking, enough to make us feel comfortable that we can cover the additional parking demand of the new boat slips. And this just shows screening. I know Ken suggested in the wintertime, of course, there's no leaves on there, but there are also no cars parking out there. This just shows that it is pretty well screened to the Jameis and Diane to our east there. And I believe that kind of goes through everything that we wanted to present. And then if anybody's got any questions or concerns here. Yeah.
Questions of the applicant?
Your website says that you provide water and sewer
Yep.
for all of,
For the RV sites, yep.
yep. So did they get SAC charges, or how do you handle the sewer charges?
We pay Forest Lake.
Okay,
I have not verified, but I think what the question that you're asking is for each of the RV units, whether or not they paid for the SAC charge according to, I don't know that it ever did. I'd have to take a look at that.
and then we charge residential customers by the winter quarter. And if there aren't a whole lot of RVs there at the winter quarter as opposed to in the summer, I don't know how the city is handling that.
I don't know that we have any
Okay.
special exemptions. We'd have to take a look at that.
I think we pay about $6,000 to $9,000 a year for sewer. So I think there was some agreement. I think they figured 3 RVs pay what a house would. But that was in 89 or 90, so. We feel like it's a lot, but, you know.
You have city sewer, but
Yep.
you have a well.
Yep, city
so
sewer
they-
and well.
So they just pay the max on whatever the sewer is, just
Yep.
like I do, right?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't have city water or sewer.
Yeah, so if you don't have city water, they just max your bill. So actually, you can do better if you have water and sewer, but that's not the discussion for this
No,
evening.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out how the whole thing works.
Okay, yep.
Go ahead, Dan. I'm sorry.
You're right to focus a lot on parking.
Yep.
That's my biggest
Yep.
concern. And I know we had in here comparison of White Bear Lake and Excelsior and
Yep.
Tonka Bay. I'm not familiar with Tonka Bay and Excelsior. I'm familiar with White Bear. Tallies is probably where you're talking about, that area. And for parking in there, I'm not sure how, there's a heck of a lot of boat slips there. Are they considering the Kowalski's lot as part of their parking?
Yeah, they do.
So,
Okay.
Because there's just a couple of those lines that say Kowalski's only.
Yeah,
And then
okay.
most of the parking
And
lot.
so there's some overflow too,
Yeah.
if it gets into the evening, and that's, I'm just worried about, this area doesn't really have any overflow. So I really think needs to be looked at closely is the parking, and make sure there is adequate parking
Yep.
down there, because there's no overflow from what I can see.
Yeah, I was gonna kind of say the same thing. I pulled up your Marina on my phone, and how do you get along with your neighbors? I mean, it looks like there's no paved shoulder on Jewel Lane North. So do you get where people that are coming there to use the boats parking in front of the neighbors on their grass, kind of?
No, they all park on.
You can
on
accommodate, right
site.
now, you can accommodate all the cars that are coming there for the boats.
Yeah, yep, so, the designated spots that we have right now, the areas, back in the day when we had fishing tournaments, you would get that influx of 30 boats launching, 30 visitors coming to watch the weigh-in, and then boat rentals. So we were much busier in the past than we are now. So now we kind of keep our neighbors who don't live on the lake, we keep their boats. They don't all come at the same time, so we figure 20% of the boats any given weekend, and 2 cars per boat is pretty standard. One might have 3, one might have 1, but 2 is kind of what we've observed over the 40 years we've been there. And we can cover parking at .78, so almost double what we observe.
So you don't really get your customers parking in front of the houses down the road?
No,
No.
no, there are no parking signs up Jewel Lane,
Okay,
so.
that answers it.
20 years ago, when we might have a bass tournament, you know, that launches at 6 AM before we're open, maybe some of them would park. But since they put no parking signs and we don't host bass tournaments anymore, it's not a
That
concern.
answers it, thank you.
Yep.
One of the challenges with Forest Lake is that it's a really shallow lake, and there are a lot of problems with turbidity and sediment. And I'm gonna have a real challenge not having your parking areas paved or all weather. Because this year especially, I mean, it has been just soggy as all get out. Yeah, it looks like things are draining really well, but the increase in the number of slips and the increase in parking are gonna beat up that grass area. And we don't need a lot more sediment and stuff running off into Forest Lake. And so from my perspective, that grass parking area is a really huge issue for me. Looking at as you're looking at some of the conforming, non-conforming stuff, sheds, I don't know how eventually we may look at that, because some of your more permanent-ish RVs have got the sheds and that we normally wouldn't say yes to.
Yep.
That having that many more folks inning and outing off of 97 in that area. That's an ugly, I live down toward July.
Okay.
That's just a really ugly area in terms of traffic and challenges. Especially with trailers and boat trailers coming in and out. I'm wondering if we can, if this does move forward, if a traffic study would be a good idea so that we can determine whether or not there needs to be additional bypass room for the inning and outing off of Jewel. And a lot of folks, they don't exactly know where to go in for years. I know you've blocked off part of that driveway that used to go
Yep.
directly to 97 that a lot of people used, and blocking that off means that they're not trying to merge. Some of them thought that was a merge lane. So that's appreciated, but I am concerned about the amount of traffic and whether or not we need some sort of a traffic study or talking with MnDOT, dealing with that issue. I just know that area real well.
You know, that whole stretch is a little rough because you have Jewel, and actually that intersection right by the Marina is pretty nice. The other end of Jewel, that's pretty much a blind corner. You just close one eye and go.
You pray.
That's what
You
I
pray
do,
a lot.
so, yeah, but you know, you have, because you have the Marina, and then you have Hosanna, and then you have Log Cabin.
Right.
And I think we're 0 for 3 for bypass lanes. And so it's not a Timm's Marina problem, it's that whole stretch problem.
There's a new bypass sort of for Log Cabin. And there's sort of a shortened, not very together for your area. But it's not what I would call a really well-planned or maintained bypass lane.
Other comments, commissioners? Any issues? Are you looking, is this good, this bad? This is what we're here for, right?
Yes, this is what you're here for. I mean, staff was honest
Yep.
with Timm's Marina. I think Ken said gallon of milk in a quart jar or a pint of milk in a quart jar. I don't remember, quart and a
10
pint.
pounds of stuff in
I
a
can't
5-pound bag.
I think he was looking at the winter photo with all the storage all over the place. And I'm not up on the screen anymore, but I was going to point out the concern on the grass being beat up. Typically, they don't, people don't come and use their boats when it's rainy. We get more pleasure boat users. So this is the most used parking area. The only spot that gets a little torn up is where we put the docks in and out with the tractor in the spring, and all these other areas, they are the most heavily used parking areas, and they do kind of keep grass on them. And we don't
Can I ask
notice-
you why you just don't asphalt it? Put asphalt down?
We don't want to live in a frying pan.
Yeah.
We figure it's really the parking's used 3 months a year, Memorial Day to Labor Day, and then it's kind of empty, and then we store boats in the wintertime. And, that combined with the fact that the ground moves quite a bit because of the high water table. So I don't believe asphalt would hold up for more than a year. And it would be like living in a frying pan.
That Heel Island thing that we were just talking about
Yeah.
with the landscape
Yep.
ordinance.
Yep, that's what I thought about when you were talking about that. Because we were out there when it was 92 degrees on 4th of July, handing out parking passes to count cars. And It was hot, but it was reasonable. If it was asphalt, it would have been worse.
You've talked about some public slips, but the signs are like, no public access. I mean,
So it
they're-
it
they're-
is
They're
private.
pretty serious.
Yep, it is private. So those that use the public access are pretty much our neighbors and those that have been in force like a long time and know. Most other are gonna use the public accesses on North Shore and downtown.
If you had more boats, you sell gas, right?
Yep, we sell more gas to lake neighbors than boat slips, just because a lot of them come full and they have 30-gallon tanks and they don't use that much through the season.
But if you doubled your slips, would you then also increase the size and et cetera of your fuel system?
No. We have a 1,000-gallon tank. We get it filled once a week. And most of the gas goes to the lake neighbors as compared to slip users. So we wouldn't notice a noticeable increase in fuel usage.
I would doubt that. I mean, if you're gonna add 60
Yeah.
slips, you're gonna have a lot more gas use. I mean, if I'm in a marina, I'm gonna pull up and get gas there too.
Yeah. And we do get a few, the campers are gonna use their boats more. They're there more than a neighbor who just has a slip there. On 4th of July, I think we pumped gas to 2 RV slip users, and the rest were lake neighbors.
So in the photo you have up right
Yep.
now, if you look to the 4 campsites you're gonna be taking out,
Yep, so,
then in front of that is a huge algae bed or growth.
Yep,
All
there,
that's getting removed.
lily pads there. So the 2 new docks, one would leave from this area here, and the other would leave from this area there. And I don't suspect we'd have to treat anymore. It's just the occasional movement of a boat would keep the weeds at bay, just like the area here from the boats going in and out through the summer. And then there are plenty of lily pads to the west there.
Other comments, concern for the applicant?
Over the years, you've done a bunch of filling to the west. Filling some of that swamp area to do parking. I'm gonna assume you got that permitted.
Let's see. I'm trying to find it here. So there, let's see, on the pond or the west bay, there was when they dug the pond originally, probably in the 50s, they stacked it to the west there. So and then there was a road there in the 80s or 70s, so we kind of just maintain what was, back from the 80s, with either wood chips or closer to the south, crushed rock. I'm trying to find the area that you're mentioning there.
I think if you open one, you might be able to just, an over arrow,
Okay.
your far right.
Yep, I see it here. This area here, we kind of somewhat maintain with that road with wood chips, and that's where we store the boat trailers in the summertime.
I never knew that was there.
So Abby, this wouldn't be treated like a development where you look at parkland dedication and all the other stuff,
No,
correct?
That's correct, because it is not a land subdivision. So the opportunity that we could have, if the applicant, the landowner moves forward with an EAW, then the next process step after an EAW with the city council would be the conditional use permit amendment and parking variance consideration. And again, at that time, we can look to see that we can put reasonable, proportionate conditions on the use. Because it is a conditional use permit amendment, we are holding hearing. It does open up the original conditional use permit, so we can reevaluate historic conditions or any conditions on the site that may not have previously been addressed. There are certain things that I think staff would address probably in more depth, or more recommendations we'd make later, but we don't have any at this time.
We good? We good?
I just would like, just a point of clarification, you're saying, are you good? And I see heads nodding. I just want to, I think, is it good that we've shared all the comments? I don't necessarily want to see heads nodding if you might not be good with the action that would be proposed. I wouldn't want to give a
I have
negative.
a lot of questions about the action proposed, especially the parking, and I realize that with what you've got now, you feel that you can maintain the vegetation. But there is a reason that we have a solid, if you're going to park a vehicle, it has to have an all-weather surface. And that is throughout the city. And especially since so many folks have, it's a shallow lake, and it's getting shallower by the year. And the additional stress on any land there of parking, I have some real strong concerns about that. I get that you don't want to live in a
Yep.
frying pan.
Yep.
I totally.
Yep.
Can you talk briefly on the consideration for 2 dock sections and not necessarily just starting with 1 to see how that would affect the actual site by just adding 1 of these piers initially instead of going so large right out of the gate? I mean, it's one thing to add 30 compared to 60. I think 30 would be somewhere where I'd be closer to see how that actually affected the area when you're putting that much additional stress on this lot compared to going 2 full dock sections.
You're doubling what you've got now.
Yeah, I mean, the hope was to just go through 1 EAW because they are very expensive to get through. So that was kind of our hope is, 2 docks makes it work for the next 40 years. There is demand, and based on, our parking survey that we did on the 4th, we do feel that, we have, parking sufficient to accommodate that. And, I mean, a typical weekend, you're gonna have 0.2 to 0.3 parking factor, and most of the boats are gonna be on the west side of the property. So they will use the grass area by the docks, and then they're gonna be in the crushed rock more than the grass area on the east. The east grass area is typically used by the boat slip owners over on the east side there, and then we expect 4th of July, after we add 2 docks, this area will be more utilized.
It'll be full.
Yeah.
I mean, if you had 64 spots and you're gonna add about 12 spots out front of those, you're only covering like a quarter of the number of slips in front of those 4 spots. I mean, you're gonna fill in along the pool there, but
Yep.
there's gonna be people parking in that grass all the time. Has the neighbors made any comments on the expansion?
We did give them the site plan and made sure they didn't oppose
They're not
before we moved on, yeah.
Okay.
One to the west, most of her property is that swamp cattail.
Wetland,
Thank you.
yeah.
I do want to just clarify one of the questions and the response. So any marina expansion requires an EAW. So if he was going to ask for 10 spaces today or 100, he'd need an EAW amendment. If he asked for 10 today, did an EAW, got the conditional use permit amendment, got the things that were needed, the DNR variant approval, and then a year from now came back and said, no, JK, I want 100 more, he'd have to start that whole process over. Does that help clarify some of the answer? Okay.
You'd be good at it the second time around.
And Abby asked, my big concerns are the parking and an all-weather surface and the inning and outing. I'm 97's a bear.
And so our view is, thankfully, nobody uses Forest Lake before noon. It's not a rule, but it's what we observe. So it'll be after the church gets out, so we won't compete with people getting out of church.
Living out there, it's the Fridays and the weekends when everybody and their dog is avoiding Highway 8 and taking 97 to Wisconsin. And it's, it's a heavy traffic area. For some reason, it's been backing up from the stop sign at 15 sometimes this year, and that's like stupid.
It's for people doing this.
Very strange.
At Manning and.
Yeah,
Yep,
Manning.
Yep, it's everybody waving everybody else on at the four-way stop.
Every Friday night in the summer, man.
Oh, it's-
Yep.
Other comments, concerns? Make sure that the applicant hears everything, good, bad, and indifferent that we would like to tell them.
Do you have storm shelters available for the boaters?
So we don't. Typically, they'll just go home. A lot of them live in Forest Lake, or they'll go to town. We really don't get the, if it looks like a cloud, they'll come in. They're very fair weather boat users.
A couple of your RVs are year-round.
So we're only 5 months. We're May 1st to October 1st, weather permitting. If the frost is in the ground, then we don't turn the water on.
They decorate them for Christmas. Okay.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
mean, we,
No problem.
yeah,
Sorry.
we put boats everywhere in October, and we gate the entrances and exit after October 1st.
Okay.
Or, well, when we're done with storage. So they might come out to check on it in the wintertime, but we're completely shut down.
Any final comments? Thank you, Joe.
All right, thank you for your time. Thank you, Abby, for putting it together. Have a great night.
Mr. Chair?
You
Yes.
can just yank that out if you want.
Abby, one of the things that you brought up is the fact that the preponderance of our ordinances say you're not going to make a non-conforming use more non-conforming. And there's one ordinance that's an issue. How can this planning commission recommend to the city council that we eliminate the conflicting ordinances? Like I said, the preponderance of our ordinances and state law says can't make a non-conforming more non-conforming. But as you said, there's one of our ordinances that says, yes, you can. And for those of you that remember 2017, that was our city council that tried to get rid of the police department. There were several things that happened during that 2-year period that were challenging.
This body can recommend to the planning commission changes at any point. I certainly can put that on for a discussion at your next meeting to formulate a recommendation. Can also provide some history on that. just as I think this is definitely so Susan is correct. State law says, don't increase nonconformities. We say in our code, you cannot change a nonconformity, but later we say you can. It's that one little, yes, you can, that our legal counsel has said, black and white. You can consider this if you'd like. I did do some research, and I don't think the intent of the ordinance change was maybe as broad-reaching as this is, and I think that it is worthy of reconsideration. We do have a lot of non-conforming uses that were permitted by conditional use permit. You may have seen one recently or going through council and the EDA right now. These sorts of things happen, and they have long-term unintended consequences. So I can definitely put that on for discussion for your next meeting if you'd like.
It would be nice to get that settled so that we don't have conflicting.
That's why they have us here, Susan, to help with the conflictions.
I understand that, but if we have a strong recommendation that, well, you have to allow this because it's a non-conforming use, and we say you can make a non-conforming use more non-conforming.
The trickiest part, excuse me for interrupting, the trickiest part is, again, our conditional use permits are uses permitted by right. And so if you have a legal non-conforming use, yes, that was a use permitted by right at one point, but the question is, do you want to continue to allow and expand those uses? That's really a very legitimate question the city should be asking. I'll put it on for discussion at Planning Commission upcoming meeting. Also just briefly touch on it when Timm's Marina is in front of the council on Monday, so they know that discussions and recommendations could be coming forward.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We'll move to our updates. I see we have our distinguished liaison here today, Councilperson Larson.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, good evening. We have not met as a council from our last meeting, so I don't have anything to share necessarily on that point. I will make a note, the last meeting I had mentioned that we were looking at 2 people to possibly fill an open position. Andy Aplikowski was the gentleman we interviewed on Thursday. And the young lady that was supposed to be our interview on Friday called in sick and has not since rescheduled. So at that point, myself and Chairman Gerard had made the recommendation to move Mr. Aplikowski forward to the recommendation of the council to have him join you on the board. So at this moment, then I don't really have anything further, but I'll happy to try to answer anything that you folks might have.
Questions of Mr. Larson?
Y'all had an EDA meeting Monday night?
I don't
Yes.
believe, I don't know, I'm
Okay,
not part of that
okay.
function anymore either.
All right. One of our issues was on, I don't know where that ended up.
I can provide you with an update.
Pardon me?
Are you talking about the?
Highway 90, or North Shore Trail.
Yes, so Pizza Pub had asked the council to allow for off-street parking. Is that the one you're talking about?
And we had discussed that one too.
I couldn't remember.
Thought we did, didn't we?
Did we? Was it only 2 weeks ago? Like
Sorry.
what?
We didn't
I think
discuss
I've been through a few public meetings since then.
Might have been a previous meeting.
What was the one before that?
Well, regardless, the council had previously discussed it and thought that it would be more acceptable to allow for parallel on-street parking adjacent to 8241 North Shore if they installed it and maintained it. We've drafted an agreement for the council's consideration at their next meeting. On Monday night, an application was forwarded to the EDA that the owner is requesting the EDA consider paying half of the cost because the EDA has recently implemented a new commercial improvement incentive program. The Planning Commission, EDA actually tabled consideration. They said that they won't consider at this point partially funding the project until the council agrees, formally agrees and enters into agreement with the landowner on the that the agreement is finalized, then it would go back to the EDA. I still can't say that whether or not the EDA would help support that, but.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Abby, anything else?
Just that some of the, I guess, no, I was gonna say, some of the items that you commented on, McKinley Creek Estates, the Forest Lake Garage condos, those did go to the council. They provided feedback to the developers. Those developers are moving forward with doing some of the prep work necessary for preliminary platting. We've met with one of them. The other one will be coming forward in a couple weeks to meet with staff on pre-application submissions. Also working through a single-family residential subdivision on the Serene property. Twin Cities Land Development, I think, maybe came and talked with you a little while ago on development off of Goodview Avenue. And so they're moving forward with preparing for a preliminary plat application as well. We have released the plat for Hidden Creek 3rd Edition over in the Headwaters neighborhood. You might have seen the Headwaters Parkway has been developed out and to its fullest extent, so you'll start to see more dirt work occurring up in that area through the summer, where they're gonna start putting in utilities and wrapping that road around to start putting in homes in that 3rd edition, probably by the fall. There's a number of other just isolated projects that we're in early conversations with, but nothing necessarily that's moving forward at the moment.
Is it tomorrow night that MnDOT has that open house regarding Highway 61 and 200th, that intersection?
That was tonight that the county had, but that is an 18-month-long planning process, and they will have a virtual public input option. So I can also, once that's available, make sure that gets sent out to all of you. Essentially, the county is looking at Highway 61 and County Road 50 or 202nd at some sort of traffic control change in that location.
Because there was another bad accident there last week.
Yeah, I knew that there was one late June that we did alert both the county and MnDOT to as well.
Other questions, Abby?
How's the 97 project coming? Is there a completion date or?
Well, it is a 2-year-long construction project. So the west side is closed. I believe they may open it in the fall, if I remember correctly. And then they'll work on the east side next year. So that is going to still be a pretty long standing process. Businesses on Everton, Quick Trip, the pizza place, liquor store, the salon, the meat market, they are all open. We have heard from those businesses that are definitely, sales are down. So do what you can to support local business where you can. Encourage your neighbors to as well. Sometimes just making that way around. It's easy to get in and out of the parking lot. I don't mean to joke, but they will be doing their parking lot improvement project though this summer as well on that east side of the property. And then we're continuing on with our new hire process. We'll have interviews next week with our final candidates. Anticipating, hoping it would be great if it was sooner, but probably the city council appointment, the second meeting in July 28th, assuming that candidate would probably have to give maybe 30 days notice. We're looking at after Labor Day, that we'll start seeing a new face in the crowd.
We have a meeting in 2 weeks.
You do not have a meeting in 2 weeks. That has been canceled. Notice did go out earlier this week.
I saw it on the website.
And then it is most likely you will only have one meeting in August, if only because there's 1 or 2 weeks a year I take vacation, and that happens to be that week. And so I'm trying really hard to crunch everything into August, and then that first meeting in September might also be a little busy, but we'll have help then.
Any other questions for Abby? All right, we'll go down the line. Tim?
Nope, I'm good.
Susan?
Nope.
Don?
Nope.
Nope.
No.
Very good. I have nothing to add. So based on that, Chair's looking for a motion to adjourn.
I'll move that we adjourn.
I got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I got a motion and a second. It's a non-debatable motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you all for your service this evening. See you in August.